Become a wealth creator today. Text VISIT to 800-454-1184 to schedule your 15-minute call with Eric and his team. That's VISIT to 800-454-1184.
Go ahead and plan that summer getaway. Even though you feel the crunch of inflation, maybe the concern of a potential recession, there's no need to deny yourself summer fun. Today on Wealth Creator Radio, Eric explains how you can manage a summer getaway amidst this economy. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm Luann Fulmer here with Eric Heckman. He and his team at Heckman Financial are located right here in Silicon Valley, and Eric's been helping people have remarkable retirements for over 30 years now. It's his goal to help you weather most any economic storm. That's why we're here together every single weekend. He's a certified financial planner. Here's the phone number, 800-454-1184. Call for a complimentary appointment. You can text the word VISIT, 800-454-1184. Another thing you can do is get our complimentary toolbox. This includes Eric's book, Worry Less Wealth. Okay, comes with other educational materials. You can text the word toolbox to 800-454-1184, and you can always find us online anytime at wealthcreatorradio.com. Eric, hello to you.
Hey, Luann. Yeah, it's back to the summertime, and when people want to be going off and do stuff. And I know there's a lot of uncertainty out there, but if you don't pay attention so much to the news, you'll actually realize that it's not as bad as all the doom and gloom that people talk about.
Good to know that we can go ahead and still dream of things to do and adventures to go on. Do you have any big plans for this summer?
Yeah, well, as you know, I like to do, I don't know if you call them goofy or crazy or somewhere in between, bicycling trips. So last year I rode the California coast. This year, my middle son, Ethan, who's in college, he'll be in between his last year of college there.
Wow.
He says, now or never if we want to go do this Canada trip. So we're drive the RV across Canada on the ride 100 kilometers in all 10 provinces in 3 weeks.
I love it.
So, we'll go from West Coast to East Coast on there, and I'll fly back, and then he'll drive back across country, and he's going to hit all the states he hasn't seen, so that'll have been in all 50 states before he even turns 21.
Oh my gosh, I love the way you guys set awesome goals, Eric. That sounds like so much fun. And really, it's a good example of what we all need to do, in retirement. Set those goals, that bucket list, and do the things we want to do. Well, okay, so, like you said, even the expense of inflation, we see massive layoffs. And of course, we're talking about a potential recession coming. Forbes surveyed about 1,000 Americans who do plan to travel this year, and about half of them say, they're going to go ahead and travel more this year, understanding it's going to cost them even more. Would they just have to allow for a higher travel budget in 2023?
Yeah, I mean, when we're talking about anytime about retirement or even just while you're still working, right? You just have to budget that in, right? And as long as you know you're not going crazy and going overboard, right? You're not spending, $20,000 for a trip that you thought was going to be $5,000 or something like. For one thing we do for all of our clients actually is we have a fun fund. Because I always tell people it's like you've got 7 days a weekend when you're retired, not 2. Mm-hmm. So you've got way more time and capacity to do more fun stuff. And that fun stuff often can cost you more money. So, that's one of the things that you want to be, really paying attention to and focused on is, okay, let's have a budget in there for these trips, for this fun stuff. And then the economics don't really matter of the time, because if you already have that in your budget, you should already have that money set aside. And so you can still go have fun instead of having to wait till you get older and older and older until you can't do it, right?
Yeah. Eric, here are some ways that travelers are actually modifying their plans for this summer. They're going to travel during the off season. They're going to change their places that they go to normally, maybe stay at a less expensive place, take a road trip rather than fly or bicycle, like you were saying, and just shorter duration of trips. So, let's talk about how we keep inflation from derailing our plans, not just this summer, but in retirement.
Well, there's no way really you can beat inflation. You just have to keep making sure you're making money, right, and not losing it, and making sure you're doing the best you can. I mean, one of the simplest things right now, if you have money in a bank savings account, get it out. I mean, geez, if they're paying you 0.01 still, that is way too low. You can easily be getting over 4% now in savings accounts. So, just that rainy day fund and those little bits of dollars, man, all of a sudden you go from no interest to 4%. It actually starts being real money. And so there's little things that you can be doing, just making sure, that you have that and stuff like you said there, especially if you're retired, you can travel off season. That's a lot better. You have a lot less crowds, and sometimes even the weather is better, right? If you're going to go to a sunny location, lots of times you want to go when it's not quite, June and July and August. And so there are some stuff like that. Lots of times, doing road trips might be cheaper, especially if you get out of California where the gas is always cheaper. So, there's a lot of things that you can do to save some money and just look at those different options out there. And what's one of the things that you really want to think about is when you're looking at your overall finances and say, okay, how does this fit in? What kind of lifestyle am I going to have? And especially when you're thinking about retirement, you want to figure out that, how can I do all those cool trips? One of the things I had some clients that they would go up to Glacier National Park and they just loved it up there. And so what they started doing is actually working there. They actually started getting employed there because they're like, well, it's pretty, it's fun, but after a while you can only stare at the scenery and hike around so much. And so then if they got a little bit of spending money for it and had a little bit of fun and interaction with other people. And so, they did that for about 3 or 4 seasons that they would do that. And he actually ended up driving, they have these unique buses up there. And so he ended up driving those at one point. So, there's a lot of great ways to do that. And, it all comes back down to having a plan, knowing, how much money you have, how long is it going to last? Are you spending too much with taxes and retirement? And when should you take your Social Security? Well, we've got all those exact tools on free downloads in our digital toolbox. And so that's something you can easily go grab. All you have to do is text the word toolbox 800-454-1184. Again, text the word toolbox 800-454-1184 or download it directly at wealthcreatorradio.com.
There's a line that bears repeating as we start putting together our summer travel plans. Most of the people spend more time planning their vacations than their retirement. So why are so many of us guilty of this?
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Retirement should be about lots of vacations, lots of fun, and we spend very little time on that. It's just like everything, right? It's farther out. It's not here. It's not up close and personal. And, and that's one of the things that people have to really be thinking about. I once talked with a gentleman who was, he had a bunch of apartment buildings and he was going to do this. He was telling me about this great trip that he was going to do. It was a 6-week thing. And, he'd had it all planned out and he was retired. And then there was issues with his apartment building and to save money, he didn't have a, manager or anything. He just did it all himself. And so he had to cancel this whole trip. And you're just going to go, well, that's ridiculous. I mean, why are you doing this, right? What was his point of having all this money and saving up all this stuff and having these assets unless you're going to go off and be able to enjoy them, be able to do something with those, right? And
yes.
And so I see that all the time. But I have some other clients that they do a really good job. They've planned for their finances. They planned for their, with us, they did a plan. We looked at how long their money's going to last. And we said, okay, hey, here's how much money you got. And so some of them are doing, all the national parks and they're out there, hitting all those. We've got some that are doing I've got one right now doing a river cruise out in Europe and stuff. So, that's the fun part is I love when seeing my clients go out there and doing all that fun stuff that they plan on doing. And, we check in with them and sometimes it's like, okay, well, those were more expensive trips. Maybe we should calm down the next year. Right. And so we always do a little bit of a reality check. But, again, if you just take the time and, really spend some effort looking at where your retirement's going to be, not only retirement, but along the way, as you build up more of those assets, you could be able to do a lot more fun trips and a lot more interesting things, even before you retire. But again, you got to take the time out and you got to sit down and figure out all those things that you need to look at. So, again, if you want a copy of that toolbox, all those things that you can do is, how long is your money going to last? And are you paying too much taxes in retirement? When to take Social Security? Even my book, Worry Less Wealth. And also, you can even set a time to talk if you want to set up a 15 to 30-minute phone call with us, with me personally. You could do that also there at that digital toolbox site. So again, all you have to do is text the word toolbox to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word toolbox 800-454-1184 or request it directly online at wealthcreatorradio.com.
And we'll be right back with lots more. This is Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman.
If something's worth doing, it's worth doing right. There's a particular time of life this phrase couldn't be more appropriate. How can you know you'll live the retirement you've always imagined? After all, life can be so unpredictable. You've worked hard and saved. Watch your accounts go up and down with the market. Your advisor says, don't worry, you'll be fine. But you still don't feel confident. Eric Heckman at Heckman Financial has a checklist to help you find out if you're on the right track for retirement. Take his checklist challenge. If you can check all the boxes with confidence, you may be ready for retirement. If not, Eric can help you address any potential costly mistakes. To get Eric Heckman at Heckman Financial's complimentary checklist, call or text LIST to 800-454-1184. See if you've got it right. Take the checklist challenge today. Call or text LIST to 800-454-1184. Firm offers insurance services. Investment advisory services offered through Heckman Financial and Insurance Services, Inc. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
We're so glad to have you here today. This is Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman, and Eric is an independent financial advisor. Heckman Financial is an independent firm. Financial experts have said that there's this thing called behavioral factors that could influence our financial decisions. And I think we all kind of know that. In other words, sometimes we just act weird when it comes to our money. Right, Eric?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. No, emotions get in the way a lot.
Right. So we're going to talk about that, on how, our behavior could really have a potential impact on our money decisions over time. How often do you see behavior or emotions get in the way of smart decision making?
Well, there's a couple of spots that are always an issue. One is buying a stock, because it's kind of like somebody, boarding a plane. If you board a plane, you hope you know where it's going. But a lot of times when people buy a stock, they just hope it's going up, and they don't necessarily know where it's going to be going or how it's going to end or where it's going to land in the end. A lot of times they don't want to sell it because, it's lost so much, I don't want to sell it yet, or it's made so much, I don't want to sell it. And then guess what happens? The ones who made too much, all of a sudden it didn't make too much, right? Because it drops right back down, or the one that dropped a bunch drops even more. And then now you're wondering why you're still keeping this stock. So that's one thing, and people get a lot of emotions around that. And the other ones, I think probably the big one is your mortgage. So I always tell people there's financial sense and fiscal sense, or emotional sense. Sorry. So fiscal sense says lots of times if you can be having money, say maybe making 5 or 6%, why would you take that money and pay off a mortgage that's at 2 or 3%? Right? Because, if you're making 6, you can easily pay the 2 or 3% off. But sometimes the emotional part is just, nope, we got to have this house paid off, got to have it paid off no matter what. So, it's one of those things where as long as you know that you have an issue around that, or you have a thought process around that, I think it's okay, because then at least you have that, right? The bad part is when people don't realize that they're doing that, and they get really stuck, and it can definitely hurt people financially.
So, Eric, we're going to look at some common behavioral traps that we all can fall into, and I want you to tell us about each one, if you could, please.
Yeah, so, one that's been big confirmation bias. If you're a Trump supporter, you see other Trump supporters. If you're Biden, you see other Biden people. It's just like when you go buy a new car, all of a sudden you see your car that you bought all over the road. Yeah. It's like half the people have your car somehow. And it's
What is that?
And it's like, no, your brain's been trained to now look for that. And, it's just like trying to find Waldo. If you didn't know you were trying to look for Waldo, you're not going to find him. But if once you see him, you can start finding him, hopefully. That's one of those things where, if somebody else, bought this stock, or somebody else didn't sell this stock, I'm going to do the same thing. It may not translate for your situation the same, but that's what happens, because you're going to say, this person's doing it, this person's doing it, and okay, it must be good for me. And I think the biggest problem with that is a lot of people just watching the news way too much.
Right.
Where they just keep hearing all the bad stuff over and over and over. So, that's one. And then, the other one's overconfidence. It's, what is it? Garrison Keillor, was it the one who had the, where the towns, everybody's above average and, right? And there's nobody's kids are below average, right? They're all above average, but hold it, that statistically isn't possible, right?
Right.
So, you think you're going to do a lot better than buying this stock or buying this fund than everybody else, because, well, that's just going to happen to those people, not me. And so that's one that can definitely get you and bite you in the end, because you may put too much into one spot and then realize, oops, that wasn't so good.
Yep.
And then probably, I think a big one right now is the illusion of control is a very big one. Right now, it's kind of scary because, the stock market and the economy have diverged to an extreme level. And, especially here in Silicon Valley with high tech stuff, I mean, technology just shot up insanely amounts. And even other companies like Tesla that have shot up so much. I mean, how is Tesla, how is Elon Musk worth more than Jeff Bezos, who's, Amazon's monstrous, does so much stuff. And, Tesla just has one plant to make cars, and there's tons of competition coming online. So, there's some stuff that definitely, you think I can control that, or I can, I know when things are going to change, so I'll get out of that fund, or I'll do something then. And no, you don't know when that's going to happen, right? I mean, lots of times bubbles, you don't see the bubble until it bursts, and then it's too late, but you thought you had control over it. And then the last one's probably loss aversion. This one, of course, March was really ugly, right, last year. I mean, that 30% drop and then the fastest recovery. Basically, the federal government just turned on the printing presses to an insane level. I mean, we don't know how we're going to get out of this, but they printed almost $4 trillion last year. After the financial crisis, they printed $1 trillion. That was it. And they did this within about 3 months. So it's super scary, how much money they've printed out of nowhere. And every time they take that money back out of the economy, the market starts crashing. So, that's one of those tough things. So, once you know about all this stuff, it's going to help you out a lot. But, you do need to know about this stuff. So, that's one of the things we can do here at Heckman Financials. We can actually help you figure out what's in your plan, what should you be doing, what makes sense for you personally, not all these other people, and make it a custom approach. And so what we do is we create that income plan, figure out, okay, here's the course you're on right now. Here's some things you might want to do to fix that, to make sure your money doesn't run out before you do. Look at those investments. Are they suitable to what you want? What's the risk level you have today? And are you okay with that risk level? Then taxes, what should you be doing tax-wise? Because there's a lot of tax opportunity this year. Lastly, healthcare and legacy. What's happening in those areas? How are you going to make sure you have healthcare? Who's going to get your stuff in the end? And that's the blueprint to worry less wealth, those 5 areas. And so what we do is we do a phone call with somebody, find out what their worries are, set a time to do virtually, go over your plan that you're on right now, and then give you the pointers of what should you change. And then it's up to you at that point if you want to work with us or not. So again, if that's something that sounds interesting to you, right now we're waiving the fee for radio callers. So good time to be doing it for sure. All you have to do is give us a call, 800-454-1184. Again, 800-454-1184, or book directly online at wealthcreatorradio.com.
And also, you can request his book, Worry Less Wealth. He has a book that you can get. wealthcreatorradio.com, and that phone number, of course, 800-454-1184. Thanks so much for joining us. This is Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman. And so, Eric, when you're talking and getting to know your clients, starting to learn a little bit more about them, do you think they show one of these behaviors, or do they sort of have a combination of them? What have you seen?
All these behaviors kind of point to certain things, right? So one I just had recently was somebody who's some money that they, I think, inherited. And so they're using the financial advisor in New York, even though they live out here. And I was making some recommendations for some other funds that they have, and they ran it by that guy. And, you could tell he was a money manager only, meaning all he does is investments and nothing else. He doesn't do full planning or anything like this, right? So he was recommending them. I talked about a way to have some of their money guaranteed. He was recommending one that was a variable annuity that goes into the stock market. And because he was saying, you should look at this company. I mean, he wasn't selling it. He was just saying, you should look at this company because they have low fees. And I was like, no, that's, you don't give somebody a screwdriver when they ask for a hammer. I mean, that's not the same thing. And so, I had to educate them about why we're doing this. We're trying to have some money guaranteed safe, some money that's indexing with the stock markets, but doesn't lose money when the markets go down. But what he wanted to do is he wanted to get that okay from his other person. And lots of times people will do that with just their parents, or they'll do it with their friend. Or they'll do it with somebody, this person's done really good investing. And then you find out really what happened was they were at some company that went IPO'd and they made a ton of money off of that. And then they've been investing that money. Well, if you took $10 and made it $1 million, that's good at investing. But if you had $2 million and all you're doing is sitting around investing the $2 million, that's not necessarily super great. So you do have to kind of walk people back sometimes from that and say, okay, what makes sense for your situation, not this other person?
You want to have confidence in your plan, but you don't want to fall into that trap of overconfidence. How do you help people with that?
Well, just by testing it. We actually have a risk score that people can look at and see, okay, here's how much risk you have today, and here's what's the odds of your portfolio going up and down the next 6 months. And, if that's the monster roller coaster and you thought you were on the baby roller coaster, well, you're about to get sick, or you should get off.
Or get off.
So what we can do is you can text us, and if you text the word money to 800-454-1184, we'll send you the report on how long will your money last. It will last as long as you do. Again, that's 800-454-1184. Just text the word money, 800-454-1184, or you can request it online at wealthcreatorradio.com.
Do you know whether your retirement plan has any weak points? Discover ways on giving your financial future the proper tune-up. Simply go online to wealthcreatortoolbox.com to gain a better understanding in taxes, Social Security, and other ways to manage your portfolio.
And that's how it's done.
That's wealthcreatortoolbox.com.
Thank you for joining us today. This is Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman of Heckman Financial. And Eric does this show every single week with the hopes of answering your questions about retirement, because his goal is to help you solve any income gaps that you might be having in retirement. And he certainly wants to help you worry less in retirement. We're talking today about how our emotions and our behavior can kind of get in the way of making smart decisions about our retirement money. And as we're talking through this today, Eric, which do you think is harder, managing people's money or helping them manage their emotions about their money?
Probably the second one for sure. Yeah, no, I've often said instead of having a finance degree, having psychology, or counseling, probably would have been a lot better and a lot more useful almost for this profession. So there's a lot that people get. I mean, literally I've had several clients that have inherited stocks, and, one was from a bank, and, that bank stock, really last year had done really awful. And so, but they didn't want to sell it because, this is where dad worked, and, he always had that. Or, there's been lots of times where, people have inherited certain stocks and they just don't want to sell them because they're emotionally attached. Well, it's like being emotionally attached to a dollar bill. Right? It's just a dollar bill. Who cares, right? So that doesn't really make sense. So, but unfortunately, a lot of times people's emotions do get in the way. I mean, for sure, anything like buying a new house and stuff, because that's changing a lot of things. Or if you're retiring and losing your job is kind of the way people think about retiring lots of times, even though you're doing it voluntarily, right? But, those kind of situations, those massive life changes are definitely always going to be emotional. But some of them are things that we could probably overcome better, but lots of times people don't. So we have to kind of help walk them through that for sure.
Let's talk about that illusion of control where, we think we can handle whatever's coming at us, any external events, things like that. Have you seen this play out with people who are trying to plan out their retirement?
Well, probably one that comes to mind is I had a guy I met with in, it must have been like the mid-90s or something. And he was in his late 70s at the time, but I just always remember the fact that, or may have been even the early 2000s, but he said he turned on Social Security at 62, the soon as he could get it, because with his CDs earning 6, 7, 8%, why does he need the money? right? And then guess what happened once one of those CDs got down to, at the time, probably, I think they were 2 to 3%. That was before they got down to the 1% range even, right? But that's because he just had that illusion of control that rates are always going to be this high. Rates are going to be up here, and then they changed, right? And you have no control over that. And if you've made decisions that affect your entire lifetime income, aka Social Security to start, that's pretty brutal because you can't go backward and fix that. I mean, it's already happened. But also, a lot of times people think about that in the stock market. They'll say, "Oh yeah, no, things are gonna be going great forever, and we're just gonna keep always making 10%, and so I don't have to worry about things that much." And it's like, no, drops happen, crashes happen, corrections happen, and those weren't big deals when you weren't taking the money out. But I think the other problem too is the illusion of control is people don't understand that once you have to take the money out because you need it to live on, you can't wait for the market to come back. And so that's one control they think they have where they definitely don't have, because you need to live.
Right.
You need money that month.
Exactly. But then on the other hand, you don't want to be worrying about all these things that are out of our control. So how can we keep from feeling overwhelmed by all of that?
So the only thing I've been able to develop over, almost 30 years in the business here is, I've seen all these issues play out, and really it probably took me almost 10 years in the business before I saw all this, because obviously you also have to go through a market correction and all those types of things to really see how things work properly. But the only way I've been able to figure out how to get all these things to work right is have 3 types of money. And so those 3 types of money are foundational money. This is stuff that can't go away, which is either something that's like a bank, an insurance company, or U.S. Treasuries. Then have some steady income money. This is stuff that pays typically somewhere around 4 to 7%, ideally a monthly, if not at least quarterly, and isn't typically tied to the stock market, so it's not going up and down daily. And then lastly, you want to have that market money. But what's happened is the 401ks really messed us up. Because the 401ks back in the late 80s, early 90s, when markets were going up like crazy with all the computers and the internet and everything else coming online, then what happens, those Fidelities and Vanguards of the world basically got rid of all the guaranteed options that used to be in retirement plans and said, hey, let's just do everything 100% at risk in the market. Well, guess what? In bad times, that can be really ugly. So yeah, with your 401k, you don't have much choice, but with your IRAs and your other monies that you've saved up, you have choices. You could be funding some of these foundational assets and these steady income monies. And why do you want those? Well, because when there's a bad time, you take money from the foundational assets. And if you have some steady income money, you always have cash flow coming in, so you're not having to sell stuff. And then if it's a good year, you take it from the market side. But most people's portfolios I see are almost always about 1.5% in terms of yield, meaning how much dividends and interest do they get off all that money they have saved up. Yet they're planning on taking out 4% a year. So if they're taking out 4% and they're only earning 1.5%, guess what? That means you're having to sell principal of 2.5%, sell shares, and that means whatever the market's doing is going to be a huge effect on you. Mm-hmm. And so if you have these types of monies, that's when it makes sense. And again, that's why you want to have a plan. That's what we do here at Heckman Financial. So, one of the things we're doing, this year is we're waiving our $1,500 planning fee for people who are listening to the show and saying, okay, let's just get you to have this information. So we'll have that Worry Less Wealth talk on the phone, find out your situation, and then if it makes sense, we'll go forward and do that blueprint to Worry Less Wealth, where we're going to look at your income, your investment, tax, healthcare, legacy plans that you have right now today, even if you don't know what they are. And then we'll tell you, hey, here's what's good and here's what's bad. Here's what you might want to fix. And then that's when you decide if you want to work with us or not. So pretty easy process. Why don't you take some time and take care of yourself? Give us a call, 800-454-1184. Again, leave us a message, 800-454-1184. Or you can book directly online at wealthcreatorradio.com.
Yes, wealthcreatorradio.com. You can even request his book because Eric wants you to have a Worry Less Wealth retirement. That's the name of his book, Worry Less Wealth. Request that as well, and you can get that complimentary. Thanks so much for listening. This is Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer. Eric, you've shared a lot with us today on how to keep our emotions out of our decisions with money, but any final tips for us?
Well, so the biggest thing I think is when you react when you have no plan, right? So anytime you're flying, what is the first thing they tell you? Put your mask on before you put the other person's mask on, right? And all this stuff, have your seatbelt buckled and all that stuff. There's a reason why they tell you that over and over, because it's been beaten up in your head and you can just react and do it, right? Same thing with having financial plan. If you have a plan, then it's really easy to fall back on that plan and say, hold it, am I actually doing the things right because of this is what the plan was? So if something goes bad, well, what was my plan? And let me look at that and see if that makes sense. But again, if you don't have that plan, geez, it's really hard to figure out, right? And so, that's one of the things that you want to be really taking advantage of, is having that plan, make sure that money will last as long as you do. And so one of the things we actually have is a report that you can just text and get. All you have to do is text the word money and to see if that money will last as long as you do, and we'll send you that report. So just text the word money to 800-454-1184. Again, 800-454-1184. Or you can request it online at wealthcreatorradio.com.
You can request his book, Worry Less Wealth. He has a book that you can get. wealthcreatorradio.com, and that phone number, of course, 800-454-1184. This is Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman, and we still have a lot more to get to, so stick around.
If something's worth doing, it's worth doing right. There's a particular time of life this phrase couldn't be more appropriate. How can you know you'll live the retirement you've always imagined? After all, life can be so unpredictable. You've worked hard and saved. Watch your accounts go up and down with the market. Your advisor says, don't worry, you'll be fine. But you still don't feel confident. Eric Heckman at Heckman Financial has a checklist to help you find out if you're on the right track for retirement. Take his checklist challenge. If you can check all the boxes with confidence, you may be ready for retirement. If not, Eric can help you address any potential costly mistakes. To get Eric Heckman at Heckman Financial's complimentary checklist, call or text LIST to 800-454-1184. See if you've got it right. Take the checklist challenge today. Call or text LIST to 800-454-1184. Firm offers insurance services. Investment advisory services offered through Heckman Financial and Insurance Services, Inc. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Hi, I'm Lou Ann Fulmer here with Eric Heckman, and this is Wealth Creator Radio. Eric is president of Heckman Financial right here in the Silicon Valley area. So there are so many big decisions that you have to weigh as you head into retirement. We always talk about those decisions every week on our show. Today, I want to do something called Retirement Yay or Nay, Eric. And this week's topic will be leaving an inheritance or not.
Sounds good. Yep, let's go for it.
Okay, you know who Daniel Craig is, right? The latest James Bond. Okay. He calls or describes leaving an inheritance quite distasteful. Yeah, and a lot of celebrities are kind of this way, which I think is really funny. They're not wanting to leave their fortune to their heirs. Daniel Craig says, isn't there an old adage that if you die a rich person, you've failed? He says his philosophy is get rid of it or give it away before you go. So I feel it's kind of bad for his kids, I don't know. That's just me. Now, Gene Simmons, on the other hand, Kiss bassist, he grew up poor. And so he wants to pass along an appreciation of money to his children. And he does say he's not going to leave them penniless. I don't know. What's your reaction to these wealthy people who say they're not leaving much or anything?
Yeah, well, there's nothing says you have to leave it to your kids, right? So, I think that's fine. Usually you want to help them out a little bit. It's pretty hard to spend it all.
That's true.
You can't take it with you, so there's going to always be something usually left over. But I think there's something to be said for making sure people earn stuff. The other reality fact is, when they talk about leaving stuff, they may be living assets to people in their 70s, right? Because if they live to their 90s or 100s, so you better not count on people dying for your retirement plan, because they may not be for a long time. Yeah. You might be working really long if you're waiting for that.
I want you to please give us, let's just take leaving an inheritance or not and go through the yays and the nays. Okay. So give us the yays of if you want to leave an inheritance to your heirs.
Well, I mean, obviously you have to consider your income needs. So, before you've done that, there's financial aid for college. There's no financial aid for retirement. So yeah, you want to make sure, it's fine to leave it after you've already made sure you've got enough income coming in. Obviously, you want to make sure you have enough healthcare costs covered, because you might end up spending several $100,000 on healthcare costs, and that might be the inheritance. But as long as you've got that taken care of first, you also want to look at the type of taxation for those assets. Is it stocks and real estate that have that tax-free step up in basis, or is it an IRA where they have to blow through the money in 10 years and pay all the taxes? So, again, it depends on which asset you're going to use and which asset you're going to leave them. But you want to make sure you understand that part. And then also, are you going to have a plan for that? I mean, are you going to make sure that, how you're going to give that away? I mean, you can give up to $16,000 per person right now. But, you might want to have a trust to protect that money, make sure it doesn't go to that ex-wife or of your son or something like that, or, or lost in a lawsuit or other things like that. And, and things like retirement accounts and all that have a lot of taxation. Again, life insurance is something that can be tax-free, so that's a great tool to leave behind. So definitely nothing wrong with it as long as you've done the planning around it.
Right. Let's go with the nays now. You don't plan to leave an inheritance for your heirs. What would be the nays of that?
Well, I mean, lots of times if you're trying to really get some tax benefits for yourself, the drawback with these is they usually exclude your heirs. There's certain things like if you're over 70 and a half, you can leave money straight from your IRA, your required minimum distributions. You can have that sent straight to a charity, and it's money that you don't have to pay taxes on, and so it's in something where you don't get the write-off, but you just don't pay the tax. So that's a great way to do it. Obviously, you can leave money to a charity. You can do lots of more creative stuff too, like donating stock to them, because then you don't have to turn around and sell the stock and pay the tax. They do it, but they don't pay the tax. So it's a good way to donate your taxes to that charity. But one we've been using a lot of is actually a donor advised fund. Because of the Trump tax laws, that a lot of people can't write off their charitable contributions because they don't have enough to meet the itemized deduction limit. So if you're, say, $5,000 short of itemized deduction, well, maybe you give $5,000 a year away. Well, why don't we donate $25,000 in 1 year by putting it into this one fund? And then from there, those next several years, you just take the money out of that fund and actually donate it to them. And so usually if you're taking stocks or anything else that's gone up a lot, you put that money in there, you get a great upfront write-off, you get to use those deductions, and then it's kind of like a prepaid account, but for charitable giving. So, there's charitable trusts, other things, remainder trusts, other things where you can actually turn around and get income for the rest of your life, and then the charity gets whatever's left over. So, a lot of these tools that give you some great tax benefits, unfortunately, all exclude your heirs. But again, if they're going to have other assets, if there's going to be other things there, most likely they're going to get your house, right? So other things that you're living in. So it can be a great way to go. But again, you want to have a plan. I mean, this all comes down to, how does it fit in with my overall plan? Does this make sense, right? That's what almost all those things, the caveats were, well, how does this affect the rest of your plan? Well, if you don't know the rest of your plan, it's really tough to figure that out. And so if you want to create that blueprint to worry less wealth, we usually charge $1,500, but again, we've been waiving that fee for radio and podcast listeners. So, if you want to take charge of that financial future and figure out what's right for you and what should you be doing, then all we do is we can have that 15 to 30 minute phone call, go over what your situation is, and then we can do that analysis, and we'll go through your income plan, your investment plan, tax, healthcare, and legacy plan. And obviously taxes, legacy kind of go together with a lot of this stuff. Income can go into a lot of this. Investments go into a lot of this. So it's all very interdependent. So again, if it's in a plan, it's really simple to figure out. So if you want to take some time and actually take charge of your financial future, all you got to do is text the word VISIT to 800-454-1184. Again, text the word VISIT, 800-454-1184, 800-454-1184, or book directly online at Wealth Creator Radio.
And you're listening to Eric Heckman, founder and president at Heckman Financial, where they've been helping clients just like you retire well and finish well. And they would love to help you out as well. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer. Thanks for joining us. This is Wealth Creator Radio. Forbes reports that inheritance trends are shifting for a couple of different reasons. I'll go over these real quick and then I'm going to get your reaction. So people are living longer. Healthcare expenses have increased by 88% over the last 20 years. The pandemic has caused some people to just say, I'm going to enjoy life now rather than save. And then some baby boomers are choosing to skip the next generation and leave money to their grandkids.
Yeah, definitely. That last one I've seen a lot.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It's like, well, a lot of people are saying, hey, my kids are, making good money. They're making more than I made when I was working and so forth. And so why leave them money? But, I want to make sure that the grandkids have, at least college taken care of or have the money for their first house and things like that. So, I think that's definitely a big one that's been happening a lot. For sure, like I said, people are living longer. So, if you're counting on that retirement nest egg being inherited down the road, if you inherited at 70 or 75, that might not be super helpful for your retirement because it might be a little late. And then, of course, like you said, the healthcare part is gotten to be a huge issue because, what used to kill you now slows you down. And, there's good and bad to that. So the really bad part is, often you're spending 100, 200, 300,000 right before you pass away. And that might have eaten up most of all the assets, that were left. Now, lots of times, I had some clients just recently do this with their dad. He was needing care for a long time and almost all his assets were gone, but they did have the house. So, once they sold the house, they did have still money left over. So, but had it been 3 years earlier, it would have been a lot more money. But again, they were able to take care of him in his house, do what he wanted. So it was great. But so I would not count on that as much. I think these trends are going to keep going like that. So again, it's one of these things where you want to have some talks with your family, talks with the kids, figure out what you're doing. Let them know ahead of time. If you're going to give a lot of this away to charity, let them know so they're not counting on it and not surprised and not thinking bad thoughts for the rest of their life about you. All right. It's one of these things where it's awkward. It's always strange, but I've seen so many fights, so many strained relationships, so many relationships that just go bad of siblings after the parents die, and all because of misplaced expectations from each other. And so, sometimes it's just the junk even. Sometimes just the sentimental items that somebody left behind. And so, it's one of these things where we have to make sure that it's going the right way and things are set up the right way. So, and people know about it and know what's going on. So if you want to set up a time to talk about this and more and get that blueprint to worry less wealth, well, we'll get that income, investment, tax, healthcare, and legacy plan developed for you. All you have to do, again, no cost, no obligation. We're waiving our fee. All you got to do is text the word VISIT, 800-454-1184. Again, text the word VISIT, 800-454-1184. 800-454-1184, or book directly online at wealthcreatorradio.com.
And Eric Heckman will be right back with the rest of our show.
Become a wealth creator today. Text VISIT to 800-454-1184 to schedule your 15-minute call with Eric and his team. That's VISIT to 800-454-1184.
Hi, you're listening to Wealth Creator Radio with Eric Heckman. He's president of Heckman Financial. He's also the author of Worry Less Wealth. You can get that book by just texting Toolbox 800-454-1184. All right, Eric, we've come to that time in our show where you give us a story about people that you have helped. Today we're going to talk about a wealth success story. Kind of a really nice example to see how things can work out for the best for retirees. So tell us about it, please.
Yeah, so this is one of my clients, Cindy, and remember when I first met her, she was sit down across the table from me, and unfortunately she'd lost her husband, and they'd been married, I think it was 44 years or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
It was a long time.
Aww.
And just a few years before that, she'd lost her son, so she was all of a sudden having to do everything on her own, and they had some rental properties, and that was not her thing. But they always managed them themselves. They never had a manager, but it was really her husband who had been doing that, and he did the handyman stuff and working with the tenants and all those types of things. And she was even telling me that they called about some floor issue, and she just started crying on the phone with them because she had no idea what to do. And so we helped her with some strategies where she could sell those in a tax-free manner, just put those proceeds into some stuff that will give her a lot of cash flow. It was funny because she had money, but she didn't see the money coming in. So she was doing very good. And then she realized that she didn't know as many people in her neighborhood anymore because she didn't get out as much. And of course, if you don't have the kids and other things to have you talk with people. And so then, we looked at it and said, hey, why don't we sell the house? And she moved into a independent living place where all of a sudden now she could talk to all these people, meet people. She didn't need that huge place anymore. And now she's just totally content. She's got plenty of money coming in. She knows she's fine for the rest of her life. And if you plan stuff and you're okay, but sometimes to know you're okay, you have to have it in a certain way. And for her, it was having the actual cash flow coming in the door. It didn't matter if it was someplace else until she saw it kind of coming in that door. That's when she finally realized, oh yeah, I am good. I don't have to worry about things, and I'll be happy for the rest of my life. And, so that's where she's at now. So, again, this is things that we can help you with. I mean, you've been listening to Wealth Creator Radio. My name's Eric Heckman. We'll be back next week for more advice to help you create wealth in retirement. And, again, if you want to set a time to talk with me directly, all you have to do is text the word VISIT 800-454-1184. Again, you can call or text the word VISIT to 800-454-1184. Thanks for listening.
Information provided during Wealth Creator Radio is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice. Information has been obtained from sources that are deemed to be reliable, but their accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing company. Individuals should thoroughly review the contract for specific details of the product features and costs. Income payments and withdrawals from deferred annuities are generally taxable as ordinary income in the year they are taken. Eric Heckman offers investment advisory services through Heckman Financial and Insurance Services, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Any tax advice given as part of this presentation is not intended to be used and cannot be used by the taxpayer for the purpose of avoiding tax penalties or promoting, marketing, or recommending to another party any matter or transaction addressed herein. The views and opinions expressed in the program are not necessarily those of the radio station or its sponsors, and they should not construe as legal, tax, or investment advice. You should always consult the appropriate advisor before making any financial decision.